Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. I'm Martin Warwick and we're here at the Broadband World Forum 2015 in London's Excel in the East End of London. Difficult place to get to, especially when it's raining. Not our favourite place really, Brian. But
oh, you said that, Martin.
I did.
I'll
stand by it.
It's a little bit far away. It's great when you get here, but it's a little bit far away.
Anyway, I'm talking to, obviously you can tell, an old friend, old mate, Brian Levy, who is CTO EMEA at Brocade. Brian, welcome. Good to see you. It's almost, 3 or 4 days since we last met?
All of 3 or 4 days in a different part of the world.
In
yes,
another country,
absolutely.
yeah. I want to talk to you first of all about SDN and NFV. You've been involved in this for a long time now. And I'd like to ask about, look, we've been through a hype cycle as usual. Lots of enthusiasm, lots of proofs of concept, lots of standards and lots of standards bodies, lots of field trials and some limited deployments now. But isn't it amazing that the number one use case for NFV at the moment is virtual CPE? Hardly a world breaker. The
Yes.
juggernaut isn't rolling, is it?
And not as we'd like it to really roll. I think it could roll a bit quicker. One of the issues we have is there's a lot of different standards bodies involved in it. That's good. It's good. A lot of people working in different areas of NFV, that's good. But there's a lot of underlap and overlap between these different standards bodies, and there's a need for somewhere for there to be more coordination across the standards bodies today. Somebody needs to, we talked about this recently with some of the major telcos, somebody needs to have a blueprint for how all these things fit together and begin to integrate these things into a more cohesive way and to begin to define the scope of these different bodies so they can all align to actually go in the right direction, in the same direction. And there's a real need for having an open ecosystem around the management of NFV. Today we see a lot of proprietary systems out there. I actually look back 15 years, Martin, to the old days, I should say, when you went to shows much like this one, and there were companies there like Prime and Data General, Burroughs, Digital, and if 15 years ago you said, in 15 years' time you'll all be gone, nobody would have really believed you. They thought you were mad.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we're a bit in that kind of a world. We've got these proprietary islands of different things and all the rest of it. And there will be an evolution. And Brocade's been working, Martin, as you know, with the Open Daylight Consortium, putting together, the open framework for network management across the industry. And those sorts of things, eventually will be, I believe, will win. And open ecosystems will move forward and will be the platform for the future. And of course, we're going through, we've been in the hype cycle. We're now probably at somewhere going down to this trough of disillusionment. But actually, what I do see is there is a real, there's a real buzz. An SDN World Forum last week that we were at. You could just feel the momentum there. And, I've been talking here with some of the same people about evolution in the industry and how, what we'll need from an infrastructural layer and how SDN and NFV will really develop to the future. And talking beyond, believe it or not, beyond virtual CPE to the real software-defined data center. In fact, here at the Broadband World Forum, I gave a talk on software-defined data centers and how now the network has finally caught up. We can have virtualized network to go with virtualized compute and storage and really deliver the vision of a truly automated and scalable data center infrastructure for the future.
So it's coming, NFV, as it should be, but it's taking a bit longer than was anticipated.
Yes. Bit of a shame, Some of the best things take a little bit longer to mature, But it is coming, and when you see it, it's an unstoppable momentum, Martin. I believe that innovation, is a bit like stretching an elastic band. You pull this elastic band and what happens when you pull an elastic band? Eventually it snaps, and when it snaps, it usually fires across the room and you can't find it, and we saw that with the iPod. When the iPod came along, we saw the whole change in the whole music ecosystem. I look in the high streets now, and it's very hard to find what I used to call in my day a record store. Right? These things people don't even know what a record is now. Yeah. But these things, CD and a DVD and albums, so they're starting to come back, aren't they?
Albums
vinyls. Vinyl. It's now not called albums anymore. I've got to get it right.
Yeah.
So we see the evolution of these different ecosystems, and SDN and NFV is really going to be a profound change to the networking industry. It already is, and in the next few years it will be one that we will really recognize as being that change point, that switch point. It's like the iPod coming along to the industry and really making that evolutionary shift towards the next scale of networking.
Let's then move on. I don't want to be down on anything. I'm not down on NFV, obviously. I'm just intrigued that the virtual CPU is the best use case of it at the moment, of all things. Let's move on to look at IoT. The amount of hype and bugle oil that's being expended around IoT is pretty much like NFV was a couple of years ago. It's also strange then, do you not think, that despite all the optimism and the hope and the hoopla, IoT hasn't taken off at the level of expectancy either. There seems to be a lot of protocols to contend with. People are a bit confused about that. It's pretty much like the old standards issue as normal, even though we're talking, inter-machine communication and so on. Again, what's the reason for that delay?
It was very interesting when I look back at things like Creative. Creative made the first, their equivalent of an iPod. But it didn't really catch on.
Yeah.
It was when Apple came along and created the whole thing, end-to-end, the solution, which was easily consumable, that it really got to market. And we're kind of in that creative stage with IoT from that perspective of it's not easily consumable, it's not easy. It's not plug and play, and people are not coming up with a value proposition.
Exactly that. The value proposition is hard to find because...
What is the value proposition?
Well, you tell me the consumers are signed up to something which they're charged for by the month, and they don't really know what they're getting unless it's a security service.
Yeah.
If they've got some kind of security service in the home as a result and part of an IoT solution, they understand the value. But if they don't have that, they don't see the value in what they're getting yet.
So you sell IoT as a solution to a real need, a real problem. You don't sell it as IoT. It's wonderful to have this Internet of Things, but to the average consumer out there, it's pretty meaningless. Being an enthusiast, I've got my home wired with IoT at the moment. Mainly so I can actually see what it's like. Zigbee and what's known as Z-Wave in the US, or Z-Wave over here. It'd be interesting to know that Z-Wave or Z-Wave or whatever is not the same frequency in the US as it is in here in the UK. And half the great devices that you want to buy are US ones, and we haven't got them in. So that straight away you run into these compatibility problems.
Indeed.
And it's not that easy to get to actually connect devices to these hubs. There's custom drivers that are needed to actually plug them in. So what I'm really saying, it's not for the faint-hearted, and it really isn't, I don't think, quite at the stage that it really is plug and play for the consumer market yet. And you talked about end-to-end services. So people want what people want. Let's talk about that. People want a home security system that is really next generation, that will alert them on their phones when something's going wrong in their home.
Take a video of what's happening.
Take a video of what's happening. Tell them that there's a leak. Tell them, that that the smoke in the house, or God forbid, or these sorts of things.
Yeah.
And if you say to them, are they willing to pay something for that? They are. Would they like a shrink wrapped solution where somebody can come in and they can install it all for them and put it all together and give them a complete solution? Absolutely. They're not going to, don't tell me I've got to get this box and do all this technology stuff. I want it. Can you provide me that as a service? And I think a lot of these models have to be sold as a service to the end consumer, not as components of a service, taking the same analogy of the creative device and the Apple's end-to-end solution, which people are looking for and want to have. Home automation, I can tell you, is really cool. Being able to control your lights when you come in, switch things on automatically, off automatically, control your heating, be able to turn it off remotely. There are systems that just do that, but they're quite limited and stovepipey at the moment. You'd like to be able to control a little bit more in the house, how you install them, how does it become simple. So there's lots of nice use cases. There's a whole automotive use cases.
Very successful.
Very successful. Yeah. So that area is also a very interesting area to look at for the future as these things develop. But again, making it simple and consumable, making it available in all the cars, and making it compatible. You buy a car from one manufacturer, and you've got one system. You buy it from another manufacturer, you've got another system. You're not going to be very happy about that. And then you say does it connect to my house system? And, mentioning the blog that I did around the social network for things recently, you want things to communicate with other things. I might want to actually show on my Facebook page an alert from a device, or I might want this device in this ecosystem to communicate with this device in another ecosystem to do something. And that's where these new sort of web-based things like IFTTT, if then they're that, these new mashups where you can actually say, for example, if you get on the BBC that it's cold that day, you can automatically turn up your heating, and it can look at the web page and then trigger your devices, any devices, because it has the adapters to be able to do this. It's all about services. It's not just about connectivity. A lot of people here talked about IoT and talked today and talked about connectivity of these devices. Great, but it's about the services. That's what it's all about. And it's about the connectivity of these ecosystems, and that will be a world of interconnected ecosystems in my mind. And when we've got that on the web, when it's simple, when it's easy to consume, when we've got the ecosystem of people that can supply the services, that's when we'll get the big takeoff, and we will see it.
Well, we'll look forward to it, Brian. We're out of time. Fascinating stuff from you as usual. Freewheeling as ever. Brian Levy, thanks.
Thanks, Martin.